The all-party meeting called by Sri Lankan President Maithripala Sirisena has ended inconclusively. All the parties represented in the parliament attended that crucial conference. Mahinda Rajapaksa's son, Namal Rajapaksa, said he is disappointed to see the talks ending without any result. He reiterated his party's call for a general election so that the people can decide who should form the new government in the country. During that meeting, according to reports, President Sirisena confirmed the JVP has informed him that it will not be coming for the meeting. The president also said that he will need the House to use the electronic system or to take vote by name on Monday for him to decide about the new government. The aim behind the meeting was to end the crisis in the country after the appointment of Mahinda Rajapaksa as the Prime Minister. There have been 2 no-confidence motions in the Parliament against Rajapaksa in a week's time, but there is still no clarity on who the country's Prime Minister is. Joining us for more on that is Bernard Guniteleke, a former Sri Lankan ambassador to China and the US, joining us from Colombo. Bernard, you also have held several positions in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs earlier, but in the respect of the meeting that took place today, it was the latest attempt to end the political crisis which has engulfed the country. What's your reading of the developments over the last few hours? Some say the fact that the meeting ended with no results comes along expected lines.
I can say one thing very clearly. That is the attempt made by the president to bring the party leaders to his office and try to discuss how to end this dispute is a welcome decision. Second, it appears to us that there was a decision that there should be electronic or vote tomorrow or else by name. That is also fine. But the fact of the matter is, during the last 2 previous occasions, there was an attempt to disrupt the proceedings in the parliament. So tomorrow when the parliament meets, I hope there will be an opportunity for the members of parliament to vote according to their own conscience and wishes, and so that the parliament could take a decision on the matter. But if there is an attempt on the part of one party or the other, believing that they will not have the majority, and then resort to violence like what we have witnessed before, then it is a sad day for Sri Lanka, Sri Lankan democracy, Sri Lankan parliamentary system, Sri Lankan standing in the international community, as well as economy of the country, which has gone through a difficult time.
Indeed, and the hope, of course, is that governance resumes and the political crisis comes to an end. Bernard, but also the demand that's coming in from the Rajapaksa camp is for an early election. How do you view that demand, given that both the sides as of now are refusing to budge? Do you see the possibility of an early election as a real one?
Well, eventually this situation will have to end up with an election. That is clear. That is giving the opportunity for the people to decide and to express their views with regard to the situation that is ongoing. But of course, then there is a process or a procedure involved in calling for elections. And the position of the former Prime Minister is that what happened was not legal, not in keeping with the parliamentary norms. Therefore, he wishes to go back to the status quo ante, and if it is not going to be, he is not going to be party to it. I really do not know, since he expressed his wishes last, whether he has changed his mind. Meanwhile, of course, the current Prime Minister says that any legitimate move to force him out of the office will not succeed. So we can expect some kind of difficulties in the coming days until such time the party is concerned, decide enough is enough, and there is a reason or a need to think out of the box. So we hope that kind of thinking will be forthcoming, and eventually everything will be settled by the population or the people or the electorate having received the opportunity to express their views on how they should be governed.
All right, let's also get in further perspectives. Joining us over the phone line is Professor Rajapaksa Wickremesinghe, political analyst from Colombo. Professor, do you see that happening? And the reassurance that's come in from Maithripala Sirisena this evening, just a short while back, is that the decision is going to be taken on Monday. Are you hopeful that over the next few hours, some clarity will emerge over who the country's Prime Minister is?
Well, I think it's probably a very good idea to have the vote of no confidence taken up. But I'm not sure that procedure-wise it can be taken up tomorrow. You usually have to put it on the order paper. And I have heard, I don't know how accurate this is, that the Speaker was trying to say that you can take it by affidavit. Again, that seems a bit inappropriate. So I hope that the proper procedures are followed, and then, as soon as possible, it's very clear or not whether the House has confidence in the current Prime Minister. Of course, the fact that the House doesn't have confidence in the current Prime Minister, if that is how the vote goes, doesn't necessarily mean that the previous Prime Minister has to be called back to office, because it's up to the President to see who has the confidence of the House. And it is clearly stated, I think it's a mistake, but it's stated in the Constitution, in his opinion. So the President can well argue that he also needs to take the interests of the country into account, and perhaps see an alternative Prime Minister. I suspect the conflict would be resolved much more quickly if the UNP could think of an alternative. But the present Prime Minister is probably unlikely to move. I mean, I've been out in the country for the last few days in very rural areas. And the dislike of Ranil Wickremesinghe is really quite startling. The argument was that if there were an election, they certainly wouldn't vote for him. But if there were an alternative leader, they might. Now, I'm generalizing from just a few small conversations, but I haven't had any exceptions to this. And apart from within Colombo itself, there's very little sympathy for Ranil Wickremesinghe per se. Now, this doesn't mean that the questions as to that the Supreme Court has to decide. It was a pity that they didn't go to court about the dismissal of the Prime Minister. But I think on that as well, the President has the advantage of the Constitution. Of course, the whole Constitution is a mess, because what happened in 2015 is that Ranil supporters tried to abolish the presidency by stealth. And that's really wrong when you have an elected president. So I hope we will resolve this soon. My fear is that while I think Rajapaksa is a much better Prime Minister than Wickremesinghe, if there were an election, I fear that there would be too large a majority for the Prime Minister. And I've always been a strong believer in having a strong opposition. One of the sad things that the Speaker did, it was really an outrageous decision.
Right.
He made a party of 14 people the leadership of the opposition, which in a sense drove a lot of feeling underground. And I think, Speakers behaved very badly right through.
Right. And, of course, all three protagonists are refusing to budge at this point. That all-party meeting was the latest attempt to end the political crisis in the island nation, which has yielded no results as of now. That meeting ended inconclusively. There is a reassurance coming in, of course, from Maithripala Sirisena that over the next few hours, the fate of the new government will be decided. We're going to leave it there for the moment, though. Bernard and Professor Rajiv, I appreciate very much you're joining us on the broadcast with those perspectives and those details. A crucial few hours and days ahead for Sri Lanka as that political crisis continues to engulf the island nation.